Welcome to the original Gangsters Podcast. I have a very special guest with me today for a second episode in a row on the 50-year anniversary week of Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance. Former Detroit mob soldier Novi Toko. Novi, thank you for joining me.
Hello, Scott. Good evening.
Novi and I are podcasting partners in crime over on Patreon, where we're given roughly 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours a week on deep diving the Tokozerili family in Detroit and getting a real insider's perspective that's never been shared before. So if you're somebody that's interested in the history of the LCN in Southeast Michigan, come check us out on Patreon. We've been doing a lot of Hoffa content this month because it's such an important anniversary. We want to thank everybody that came out to the first in the slate of live events that Novi and I did together, where we talk about the Hoffa case called Hoffa Mystery Solved. And we want to break some news here that piggybacks on the news that was broken by Fox a couple days ago, which threw a lot of researchers and investigators into a tizzy. And I have some follow-up information that I want to report, and then I want to get Novi's analysis. So back on Saturday, Fox News reported that they had gotten possession of a 302 debriefing document where a quote-unquote, or they said a new claim, which got a lot of people wondering if this had just happened. And we're going to get to that in a moment. But they said, according to a new claim, a Detroit mob figure had a meeting with the FBI, admitted to being part of the hit squad that kidnapped and killed Jimmy Hoffa, and saw Billy Giacalone pull the trigger or tighten the garret or however he was killed. And that if he was called in front of a grand jury or called at some type of trial, he would deny it. Has had a lot of people ask questions about who that person could be and if this is something that's fresh. So the first thing I want to report, I've done some real deep diving where this came from over the last 3 or 4 days. And I can report with confidence, without getting into the specifics, that this is not a new 302. This is not something that was filled out or an interview that was conducted in at least the last 15 years. I've had some people speculate to me that this was something that was filled out in the 90s. I've had other people speculate to me that it was filled out at some point between 2005 and 2015. So that will put that aspect of it, we can put to bed. We were thinking that this is like all bets are off now. Maybe there's somebody that's alive right now meeting with the FBI, acknowledging that he was involved with Hoffa. So that's not the case. So, but it still makes you wonder who was this. So what with me saying now, or being able to report, Novi, that this is not new, and Fox really was being frankly careless with their wording because they said new, and I think they meant new to them, like it was new to Fox. But it's still pretty shocking, I guess, that this is now the second person that we know that the FBI had some type of relationship with, whether it was for an afternoon or for longer than an afternoon, where they had one of the conspirators, across the table from them. The person was telling the truth.
Yeah, I doubt very, very much that it was a conspirator that you could put any stock and trade in. I think in regarding to find the body of Jimmy Hoffa, and I doubt very much that any of these people knew it. Money's a great motivating factor, and you nor I have asked for any money from any reward being offered in regards to Jimmy Hoffa. We, along with Mr. Cabertino, have put pieces of the puzzle together because of our separate individual
different schools of expertise.
Knowledge. We each have a specific, we have a different set of knowledges. We put it together and we came up with real ending to that story. We might have a few details that we couldn't plausibly leave out or rule out, but I'll tell you the truth. I think we can. Most of them, we can come up with maybe one or two ways that he died, and we can come up with one or two ways that he was disposed of. Frankly, I believe in the way that we reported last week, and that's what I believe. And I believe it because people involved told me face to face. You believe it because you have researched it for 20 years. This other guy, I don't know who he is, and I don't know what he said. So that's all I can say about the matter.
Well, I think, to extend your point, we are giving a definitive answer to who killed him, and that's Tony Palazzolo, and we also believe that Billy Giacalone was present. That part of the 302 I think is true, and that there is no body, and I think those are the two biggest things that need to be known.
Absolutely.
Right. There's a lot of other stuff to debate, but I'll let me just push back on one thing, Novi, and respectfully. It didn't look like, and maybe I'm misinterpreting it. It didn't look like this person, if we're going to believe that this person had knowledge, and we can sit here and say maybe he didn't, maybe he was selling stories. But it didn't look like this was something where he was, or the person that was being memorialized, the comments that were being memorialized in the 302, didn't look like he was looking for reward money. Because then we would have had a dig of some sort or a search of some sort. I don't know.
Well, you may be right because, all right, I'm going to agree with you there because it doesn't make the 302 would have order was offered. I've never asked them about it. So I'm going to agree with you at this point. Okay.
I don't know what I think, but the bigger question, and I can't answer it, is what was the motive? Well, what would be the motive? And then from the other side of it, I've heard people say over the last couple of days, why didn't you, or first, did they immunize him? Whoever this was, did they say you now have immunity from being prosecuted? I don't know the answer to that question. And B, why didn't they take this guy, whoever he was, and drag him in front of a grand jury?
I agree. If they believed him, why didn't they?
But so I talked to a couple retired FBI agents that were heavily involved in the investigation. And they swear to me, and these are guys that can't talk on the record about open and active investigation. So these are off the record conversations on background. And these people left the office in the 2000s. I'm not going to get into specifically when, and they, to a man, they say, we would have known about this. We don't know what this is referencing. Therefore, our opinion is that this happened at some point in the, let's say in the last 20, 25 years, as opposed to pre-2000. So
there's not much I can say to all of that. If that's what they told you, I believe them.
And I'm just, even though we've learned this wasn't as much of a bombshell as we thought, because if it was new, fresh, that would be a bigger bombshell. But it's still something that I'm trying to wrap my brain around if we're going to give it validity. But there is the possibility that this person was somebody that wouldn't know and didn't know and was talking nonsense. But if we're going to believe that this person knew what they were talking about, my mind is going wild with who this could be, even if they're dead, which they probably are. Who would have done that?
Well, I could think of somebody who it might have been.
And let me throw this out there.
A storyteller from day one.
Well, let me throw this out here too. And I say this carefully, delicately, and with respect. I'm just posing this as a question. I'm not trying to further besmirch Mr. Palazzolo. Is there any way this was Tony Pal on his deathbed?
I don't believe that at all. No,
okay. I'm just posing it as a question.
No, I don't believe that at all.
Do you are there people that are not alive that would have some form of knowledge that you think would have been prone to having a secret,
that are not alive,
that would feel comfortable having a conversation like that with the government, but doing it dry?
Not that I can think of.
I'm not asking you to name.
I don't believe. No, not that I can think of offhand. Not somebody that would have knowledge. I could think of a few guys that would have told some tales because they love this cloak and dagger of the outfit. But anybody that's alive that would have knowledge, no, I do not know of anybody.
Well, I'm glad that we could at least get a little bit more of an understanding of what this report was actually saying. And I'm confident that my sourcing on this is accurate and that this is not something that happened in the last 5 years. Maybe even not in the last 10 years. But there is a 302 that exists with somebody claiming to have been on the Hoffa hit team who met with the FBI. And I know I already, I don't want to be redundant here, but it brings up the notion again to me, and I'm calling balls and strikes here. I'm not, that the FBI seems to have had resources that were very, very close to this thing. And for whatever reason, we're never able to leverage those resources into any form of a case or charges. And I guess I don't understand that. Like Lenny Schultz, we know I don't think Lenny was there when Hoffa was killed, but I think Lenny was very involved in creating the circumstances and setting the meeting and help. We know for a fact, it's in court records. He admitted it himself in court. Lenny Schultz was working as a confidential informant for the government for over a half century. This person, if we're believing him, was, for at least one afternoon, was sitting across the table from FBI agents saying, "I did it." I don't know. I don't know. Those seem like two things.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. Lenny Schultz was probably involved in the setup, knowing where it was leading, and the setup of Jimmy Hoffa, not knowing where it was leading. I doubt very much if he knew any of the particulars beyond. We're setting up a meeting with Tony Pro. I doubt if he knew any particulars beyond that. I don't think, from my experience with the people involved with Lenny Schultz, nobody really ever completely trusted him.
Well, here again, I'll push back a little bit on that, just in the sense that it looks like in 1974, Tony Giacalone trusted Lenny enough to kill Harvey Leach at his house. So it makes me think that they trusted him more than they would normally trust a Jewish lieutenant.
I don't know about Harvey Leach, but
I'm giving
Tony
you
Giacalone, you said did that.
Yeah,
You're giving me what?
According to the FBI, according to court records, grand jury testimony, Harvey Leach was called to a meeting at Lenny Schultz's house by Tony Giacalone. Tony Giacalone didn't show up at that meeting. Lenny Schultz told his wife and family to leave the property for the day. And Harvey Leach never came home from that meeting and was found in the trunk of his car at 13 in Southfield. It's the contention of the government, although they never charged anybody, but the government insists that Leach was killed at Schultz's house. And Schultz says, and I think this is possible, there was a burglary of Schultz's home in the next couple months after that. And Schultz says this was the FBI breaking into my house under the optics that they were burglars, and they were trying to find something to pin this case on me. Meanwhile, the whole time he has some type of relationship with them.
I don't know. I all of this. First of all, I do remember the Harvey Leach incident, and the fact that nobody was ever charged. There were no conspiracy charges. There were no murder charges. Means that what the FBI has there is complete utter conjecture.
Right. No.
Other than what Lenny Schultz told them, and who knows what Lenny Schultz's reason for telling him anything would have been. I don't know. I didn't know Lenny Schultz.
But doesn't, going back to what I was saying before though, but doesn't this just add questions to whether everything was on the up and up with the FBI? And I'm not trying to be antagonistic. I'm just calling balls and strikes. And I'm sure the people that were making these decisions are long gone from the office and long retired, or possibly, no longer on this earth. But if I am Harvey Leach's family, or if I'm Jimmy Hoffa's family, knowing that Lenny Schultz was being operated for 50 years as an informant, something that he admitted to himself in open court, that would make me mad if I'm one of the victims' families here. Like,
I agree with you. It should make them mad. And I've been around long enough to know that not everybody's got their skirts completely clean, and that includes the FBI. That includes people in the Justice Department. That includes guys in the street. That includes informants. Everybody. It's just the way the game is played and has been for years. Now, when you go back that far, 50 years, 60 years, we know for a fact that 60 years ago, or in the 1960s, the FBI planted illegal bugs just to get information.
Right. Both
and
in Detroit and in Chicago.
That we know that's what happened. There were no court orders. It was just to gain information. That had been going on prior to the 60s also, when wiretaps were first discovered. I mean, didn't they do that back in the 30s to gain information on who planned what?
When they first figured out how to use that technology, which was in the end of Prohibition.
Yeah, and we also know that there were times when you had to take a beating from a police during interrogation. I mean, that was the way it was. That's the way it is. It's not always been played cleanly. So I don't doubt that Lenny Schultz and the FBI wanted to check out the veracity of Lenny Schultz informant information. I mean, that doesn't doubt. I don't doubt that at all.
But, and I guess I want to cite some law here, and that doesn't mean that everybody plays by, just because it's the law doesn't mean either side of the fence, follows the law. But if you're an FBI agent or a DEA agent or just a regular city police detective, and you're operating a source as a confidential informant, and that confidential informant commits a homicide, the law is you immediately, whether or not you can prove it or not, you immediately cease contact with that source.
And we know that didn't happen in Boston, don't we?
Right, exactly. So it's like, so in this case of Schultz, you have these two homicides that were in the same, 14 months or whatever. And they continued operating him at least through the 80s. And then you have this 302 where we know that there was one of Hoffa's alleged killers meeting with the FBI and telling the FBI about the Hoffa hit. And he's not arrested immediately. He's not told he has to go in front of a grand jury. It just adds more. There should be less questions than answers 50 years later, especially when it comes to the government's handling of this. But there's more questions.
Doesn't surprise me, Scott. None of this is going to surprise me. That doesn't mean there's not going to be more fiction coming out either.
Right. Well, so we just wanted to touch on that here on YouTube and follow up from the story that we broke down and analyzed a couple of days ago. So if you want to continue to hear from Novi and keep on learning about the history of Detroit LCN and the history of his family, which were the Detroit Royals. They were the aristocracy, the Tokos and the Zerrillis. Come on over to Patreon, and we will be there all the time, all week, every week, letting everybody know the real story. So please, everybody, like, share, and subscribe. Come see us on Patreon. Novi, thank you so much for your time tonight.
You're welcome, Scott, and you have a nice evening.
And we had a couple audio problems that we hope we can get corrected in post. We apologize if the audio wasn't perfect tonight, but thank you to Benny behind the glass. I'm Scott Burnstein for Novi Toko and Benny Augusta. Original Gangsters Podcast, uncovering the underworld, one city, one region, one country at a time. We'll see you guys very soon.